Also, to discuss this and the week that was in American politics, we're joined by former White House staffer for both Republican and Democrat presidents, Professor Ed Blakely. Ed, welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you.
So, we had that meeting on the sidelines, looked fairly cordial between, or even warm perhaps, between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Putin once again says, we didn't do it, no meddling in the US election, and President Trump says, well, I believe you.
Yeah, was the burglar in the neighborhood? Of course not. Look, Putin can deny this because the president is acting like it didn't happen. So they are joined at the hip here. These denials are really helping them politically, but they're doing nothing for finding the truth. I think eventually Putin, behind back doors, will say this is a bad deal. I'm going to let those papers out and let Trump sink because he cannot afford for this to come to his door.
Well, this is also in the face of the findings of America's intelligence agencies, which say there was Russian meddling in the election.
And of course, the president says these are political hacks and people who don't know what they're talking about. Now, these intelligence agencies have been around a very long time. They're run by people who are expert in the fields. Now, of course, the president's expert in everything, but even his own intelligence advisor says the Russians were involved. So where does this end? Does he know everything about everything? I don't think so. This is becoming more difficult for him every single day. And don't be surprised if his son is not before a grand jury.
Well, speaking of which, we still have the ongoing investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. We've had 3 names already in terms of indictments. It's expected that there may be more to follow. So are you expecting that in light of all this, that we may still hear further comments from Donald Trump trying to distance himself?
Well, he's trying to distance himself because he wants to keep his base there. But look at what Mueller's doing. Mueller is going deep into his organization, his bodyguard, his secretary and personal assistant, but he's also going wide. Now we've got Carter Page, we have Clovis, we have all these people, some of whom are going to turn state's evidence. And it looks like Flynn has really, for his son, he may say, I'll turn if you let my son go. Let me add one other thing. Almost all these people will be under state indictments where there can be no pardons. So the president's going to be in a very difficult position. The president's already throwing Kushner under the bus.
Well, meanwhile, as we've seen, Donald Trump has been at APEC. He is pushing for more trade deal. He's looking specifically at China, of course, and also South Korea. But we have our own play there as far as the Trans-Pacific Partnership is concerned. Donald Trump has already said, I'm not part of that. What is his plan as far as international trade is concerned?
His plan is to stiff-arm China, but that's not working. Those trade deals that were announced were all done, almost all in the Obama administration. The airplanes, those aircraft were 2 years ago and the like. And even Tillotson said, this isn't a big deal. So he's dealing with China and Japan. But the rest of the Pacific are real tigers. Malaysia, etc., they're growing. And Australia recognizes that. And Australia is taking the lead here and pulling this together. So the T11 are going to be very powerful. The United States cannot be on the outside. Trump cannot leave the United States on the outside of this trade agreement because if the U.S. is on the outside, the things the U.S. trades, and that's intelligence, computers, information systems, and so on, will be in a very bad and difficult shape because the United States does not make things anymore.
But has Donald Trump essentially said that he's more likely to follow bilateral agreements? That's his preference, to strike individual deals.
It's not going to happen because when this T11 comes together, the 11 will come before any other deal. So if I've already made all my deals, I don't have one for the United States. And think of if you're in a small country like Malaysia, and you have a deal with Australia and these other partners, and that's taking up 3/4, you can drive a very hard bargain with the United States. That's what he's up against. He's up against a team versus an individual. And U.S. companies are scrambling now, disassociating themselves from this administration so they can make deals on their own. So there will not be bilateral deals. If I were a country, why make a deal with the United States? The United States has to come to me.
Some, though, have interpreted the Canadian Prime Minister's failure to show up at that signing ceremony around the TPP-11 as a sign of pressure from Donald Trump, though, around the North America Free Trade Agreement and what might be happening in that sphere. Do you see that as a possibility?
Yeah, but we have the Canadians leading that now. So I think Trudeau has seen a soft spot here because the United States now needs Canada. And Mexico, of course, where Trump says he's going to build a wall. You're going to build a trade wall? I don't think so. So we have Trump saying things that might have made sense in the 1950s, but make no sense today. American industries awake to that. American people are awake to that. So I would anticipate the U.S. is going to try to leave a little space to come into this trade deal. They may make it a series of bilateral deals or multilateral deals that'll add up to the TPP. You can't stay out of this deal.
Ed, we should make mention of the tragedy of the past week, the gun atrocity in Texas, where some 26 lives were lost in a mass shooting by a lone gunman. Is this an opportunity to revisit gun laws? Is there any appetite from the Trump administration to do so?
There isn't, but there's an election coming up in 2018. We saw this election in Virginia as an election for peace and harmony. The governor race in Virginia was the gun race. The same thing happened in New Jersey and so on. So there's now momentum among the American people to stop the guns and stop this. The Trump administration won't go there, but you'll see a few Republicans, Faith and others, stepping out, Flake rather, and others, stepping out saying, we're against guns. And Arizona has, they almost lost a congresswoman from guns. So I think we're going to see a movement against guns as the Democratic Party's movement. So now the Democrats have a movement based on guns. Almost 75% of the Americans want those big machine guns removed. If the Republicans don't do anything, they're going to lose big in the next election.
But are you saying that's more likely to happen via state-based legislation?
No, it'll be national legislations. If the Democrats can get in, and they don't really have to get in, there'll be enough Republicans from northern states, California and the others, plus the Democrats, to put up some gun legislation. And when they put it up, it'll get past the Senate, and they'll have enough votes to overturn the president. And think about this, the president has won no votes yet in the U.S. Congress. This would be the biggest insult.
Do you see that as a real possibility given the results that we've seen in these current elections ahead of the midterm?
Yes, these weren't just wins, they were big wins. And when you get a turnaround of 16, 20%, that means some of the other people have voted for you. Many Republicans are already abandoning Trump and this very negative agenda that's even reaching Australia. We had an incident here in Victoria, which is illustrative of the kind of message that's being sent.
Professor Ed Blakely, thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.